In this time, it's interesting to note with all that's going on, America's still eating, America's still moving, because there are essential workers that are still serving. They're healthcare workers, they're grocery store workers, they're trucking, they're folks at convenience stores and gas stations, they're sanitation workers and power generation, they're farmers and ranchers, they're at refineries, yes, they're even in government, public safety, law enforcement. While the news every day covers folks that are at home waiting to return to work, we at times forget the people that are working twice as hard right now to be able to make sure that's even possible. And we're grateful for what they're doing. We're grateful for the sacrifices of their family and of the hours that they're putting in. But I want to be able to highlight a couple different groups that are unique in this mix. Some of the folks that are really, truly behind the scenes in it that we really don't see a lot, but we see the end result of their product. Let me start with farmers and ranchers. There are folks that are on farm and ranch, and they're taking care of making sure our food, because as we know well, food does not grow in the grocery store. It actually has to happen somewhere by folks putting in the work out in the sun and getting a chance to be able to bring that crop in. We're watching it happen across my state and across the country right now. Wheat's coming in, and in Oklahoma, it looks beautiful. It's green still, but in the days ahead as it comes in, it'll be very important to us. But it'll be interesting to be able to see this crop, if it's not taken out by the hail that's coming in this weekend, this crop as it comes in will be very important to us, but the challenge will be that this year, the H2A workers that typically come in literally from all over the world and do custom cutting are not able to come in this year because of the coronavirus. And the challenge will be, will Americans step up when literally the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few? Will Americans step up and say, I will not let that harvest go to waste. I will engage in bringing the harvest in. Folks that are in forestry, yes, forestry and logging is a crop in Oklahoma. For those of y'all that haven't been there, it's the eastern side of our state. It's incredibly important to us, and we're seeing a boom in that area, thanks to things like a great need for boxes for everyone getting all their materials shipped to their house right now in this small commodity we call toilet paper that seems to be a run on it going on right now. Cotton, corn, sorghum, beans, so many things that are so important that are behind the scenes that if we lose track of the fact, we'll just miss it. But one of the things that has been in the news lately has been livestock and the processing of those livestock. There's been news about how coronavirus has spread in some of those facilities, and I have one of those facilities in my state. It's Seaboard. It's a tremendous operation where folks have worked for decades in a tremendous place to be able to harvest those hogs, to be able to turn them into fabulous things like bacon and pork chops. In this location in Texas County, in Guyman, we've seen an outbreak in Texas County. Now, the folks at Seaboard Farms have stepped up to it. 95% of their workers have now been tested, and they're in the process of actually doing an entirely different test all over again just to be able to track and to be able to find even the people that were negative, if they'll show positive the next time, to be able to make sure they're staying on top of it. But they're running at 60% operation right now. And that may not seem like a big deal to you, but that's about 7,000 hogs a day that are not being harvested. They're having to be what is euphemistically called depopulated. That's a tremendous loss to everybody in the entire food chain. We're seeing major issues that are also happening with our beef production, as we've had enormous issues on trying to be able to harvest those animals. As we go through the process and all the challenges, it become extremely personal to a lot of the folks in my state. In my state, this is not just a theory. In my state, this is actually happening to real people. It's Jim Howard, a fourth-generation rancher who ranches in Jefferson County. His whole family, his brother, his wife, his grandson, sons-in-laws, everyone's all involved in the operation. They have ranching, cow-calf, stockers, they have a feedlot operation, they've got it all. But at this point, they're facing between a 35% and 40% loss in the prices of cattle. Literally, he loses money on every single cow. It's Robert Freimeyer from Custer County. He's a third-generation wheat and cattle farmer. Using today's wheat prices, even with that crop that's coming in, he will lose $150,000 this year on his wheat crop, not to mention what's going to happen on beef cattle. There's a reason that we're trying to be able to put solutions in the CARES Act. There's a reason we put $19 billion there to be able to help our food supply. $3 billion of that has gone towards providing for our food pantries and nonprofits and places to be able to get food out to people so that food doesn't go to waste. But there is direct aid that's going to farmers and ranchers to be able to make sure we keep those operations alive long term, because we need them to exist at the end of this. And we're grateful to be able to come alongside them. But there are real challenges on the packing operations that are not new. They've been around for a while. And we're pushing in a couple areas to say we've got to solve a couple of these problems. Our small packing houses that are out there, they pay almost $80 an hour for overtime fees. $80 an hour for each inspector to be able to do overtime fees. So if we've got a location like Seaboard Farms that goes down and they want to be able to go out to another location and to be able to ramp up, they're actually financially punished for being able to do that. And they can't make the math work. We have to solve that so that we're not punishing small to medium-sized operations for ramping up in moments when we need them, and we need those small to medium to be able to ramp up and grow larger. And we've got to solve the issue of the CIS program that is allowing folks to be able to sell over state lines. 27 states, including my own, have state inspection programs that equal to the USDA program. They have to be equal to it, but they're still not allowed to be able to sell over state lines until they get the CIS program done, and only 3 states have been able to complete that. This should be logical. We should be able to solve this. Those 2 things would allow long-term fixes for the packing house operations, something that we've complained about for a long time. We should solve in this moment because it's become even more obvious. And the issues about energy continue to rise for us. We as a nation are finally energy independent. Finally. We choose to buy energy from places we want to buy energy because we can produce it ourselves. But we cannot go backwards to a time period when we're dependent on the Middle East again because of what's happened in COVID-19. We've got to be able to pay attention to this. There are common sense solutions that I understand full well. There's some folks that don't like fossil fuels. I get it. But those same folks fly on planes, and we drive cars and trucks, and we like wearing clothes, and we like having paint, and all of those things that are disposable now, like PPE, guess what they're made of? Petroleum. So this whole challenge about let's try to get away from petroleum, it's been interesting to me how many people have suddenly gone from let's reuse everything to the last 2 months say, no, actually we want disposable everything now. Well, guess what? Those disposable items are made with petroleum products. We do need this balance. We can do it clean, but we've got to be able to keep this part of the energy industry open and still functioning. And if the whole system collapses, we will not be able to do that. Many of you know my state as a production state. We at times will have hundreds of wells for oil and gas that are happening. Right now, in the entire state of Oklahoma, there are 12 rigs working. 12. That's the collapse of thousands and thousands of jobs. And if those jobs and those companies go away, that does not recover, and we're suddenly dependent on the Middle East again. We cannot go there. We have to be able to resolve that. That's why the Paycheck Protection Program was opened up to small businesses, yes, even energy companies, to help sustain them for a couple of months to be able to get through this. But it's going to be a very big challenge for them. And quite frankly, something that's news to this body that I want to just be able to raise. In 2007, long before I was in Congress, Congress passed an act dealing with ethanol, mandating a certain number of gallons of ethanol to be used every year. Well, guess what? America wasn't driving in March and in April. That means we're not going to be close to the number of gallons of gasoline that we normally use, but we still have a requirement sitting out there for the number of gallons of ethanol that have to be used this year. We literally have an energy ticking time bomb based on a bad law that was written years ago dealing with ethanol. And if we're not careful, we're going to cause even bigger challenges in energy based on that law on ethanol and the number of gallons that are required when there is literally no way, even if we poured it on the ground, we can use the gallons required in that law. That's going to be an issue for us. And it's one that we need to be able to work cooperatively and in a nonpartisan way to be able to say, let's have some common sense in this moment to be able to solve how we deal with our energy. lest the prices of gasoline explode at the backside of this, not because of undersupply, but because of ethanol regulations. We should not allow that to be able to occur. And we should be able to not only solve that for this year, but solve it long term. I'm grateful for the folks that are farmers and ranchers and that work in the energy, the folks that work behind the scenes that make America move, because in the days ahead, we'll start moving. As my state has already reached phase 2 of reopening, and we continue to see a decline in the number of cases, but those folks that were working behind the scenes the whole time are making the difference for us.